Welcome back to the JonBownePolitix Week in Review, you basket of deplorables. And what a week it's been. Quite a few interesting stories this week, so let's get started. The day many had been waiting for has come and gone without the violence expected from those who have been following the previous behavior and legal troubles of anti-fascist events in America.
Everybody knows Trump and Pence have got to go. Everybody knows Trump and Pence have got to go.
Refuse Fascism, an organization funded by George Soros that attracts college students, a few college professors, and various malcontents sympathetic to socialism, communism, and who are vehemently opposed to President Trump, attempted to hold mass protests on Saturday in 20 U.S. cities. It's possible that Saturday's now turnout for these protests was a natural consequence of the futility and dishonesty of Refuse Fascism's rhetoric. Refuse Fascism's main tenet is that the Trump-Pence regime must go, although last November's election did usher in a new president. The new president is bound by the same job description and constitution as the previous president, Barack Obama. Few among the ranks would call Obama a fascist, so their assertions about Trump seem nonsensical at best. Therein lies the most glaring example of just how disingenuous this organization is. A democratically elected president can never be a fascist or be considered part of a regime. Perhaps misleading their recruits led to their anticlimactic failure. If you assume that commies are human and dislike being lied to as much as the rest of us, not to mention that the enforcement of mask laws in New York and California may have had an effect as Antifa comes to realize that they're no different than the Ku Klux Klan, who they claim to hate. Bo Bergdahl faced sentencing this week for desertion of his post in Afghanistan. Bergdahl wandered off his base in 2009 and was captured by the Taliban. His rescue, negotiated by President Obama with a prisoner swap in 2014, was highly controversial. Though facing life in prison, Bergdahl was let off with a demotion to private, a fine and a dishonorable discharge, but no further jail time. Trump's tweets regarding his popular opinions in favor of severe punishment for Bergdahl and Bergdahl's prior 5 years in captivity in Afghanistan were key considerations in his sentencing that many Americans consider disgracefully lenient.
You may not be aware of this because you've been working all morning long, but the president has been tweeting from the plane from Air Force One on his way to Asia. And he just recently tweeted, "The decision on Sergeant Bergdahl is a complete and total disgrace to our country and to our military." So we now know how the president feels about that. It hasn't changed much from when he was a candidate. How did the judge then explain his decision?
He didn't. There was no explanation. There was a simple pronouncement of sentence. I mean, the whole sentencing decision, the hearing this morning, was over in 2 minutes.
Troubles for President Zuma of the African National Congress Party in South Africa continue. Groups calling for his impeachment held protests this week, which led to arrests. Zuma has faced allegations of corruption and is accused of inaction and even encouragement of rampant attacks and murders of white South African farmers. Zuma was famously filmed in 2012 singing songs with lyrics such as "Shoot the Boer." Approximately 70 white farmers have been murdered, often brutally, since the start of 2017. Boers, white South African of Dutch descent, are increasingly fearful for their lives and future in the country, who, after the fall of apartheid was a beacon of tolerance to the world and branded itself as the Rainbow Nation. The 100th anniversary of the Balfour Declaration this week, which gave Britain's approval for the creation of Israel, was met with the controversy you might expect. Calls for Britain to apologize were predictably not met. Palestinian protests were widespread, and pro-Palestinian protests in many other nations were also held. The activist artist Banksy held an apology party in Palestine, complete with a fake Queen Elizabeth and cake. Murals by Lush Sucks also showed up on the Israeli wall surrounding the West Bank. While they may be upsetting to some, they're well worth a look. A senseless and tragic terror attack took place in New York City earlier this week. A Muslim immigrant from Uzbekistan who had been living in America for 7 years used a rented truck to mow down pedestrians and bikers on Halloween. The terrorist expressed pride and joy in his evil acts and was bold enough to ask for an ISIS flag to be displayed in his hospital room. ISIS did claim responsibility for the attack, which the scumbag is likely to be flattered by. Since the terrorist lived, he won't be as honored as a martyr, and he won't be rewarded with his 72 virgins. Since this evil man entered our country as a winner of our diversity lottery, an immediate push to end such programs is underway. Americans are understandably outraged about many aspects of our immigration policies and the lack of appropriate vetting of candidates for citizenship.
I am today starting the process of terminating the diversity lottery program. I'm going to ask Congress to immediately initiate work to get rid of this program.
This week's 4chan PSYOP caused quite a stir. Flyers started showing up on high school and university campuses this week with the words, "It's okay to be white," printed on them. Though innocuous enough in message, the flyers seem to be equated with white supremacy or racism. While Black Pride, Gay Pride, Latino Pride, and other pride identity groups are celebrated, it's generally understood that a specifically white pride movement would be less well received. Hopefully, the issues surrounding these flyers will lead to constructive discussions about why white identity has become so controversial and why some people feel that white identity is under attack.
The news at 11 continues with a disturbing story out of Montgomery County. Students found flyers taped up at a high school that say it's okay to be white. And now there are some racist online threats connected to them. Here's Stephanie Ramirez.
Here's what's going on. Yesterday, these flyers were posted to at least 2 different locations, the University of Maryland and Montgomery Blair High School in Silver Spring. The high school even caught the poster on surveillance video. When I asked the school spokesperson what was going on, he sent me a web link to an older post that shows this was planned. The page even says what to write. Oh, and the post also says this: "We expect the anti-white media to produce a storm about these racist, hateful, bigoted flyers with a completely innocuous message. The media response will rally new support for pro-white activism." Well, this did upset a University of Maryland student who tweeted the flyer with her own message. And being on social media, she got a flood of responses, but she says this also included death and rape threats. So now police resources are involved. Prince George's County Police Department, they're investigating. Montgomery County Police are aware of it. And their parents, well, they're over it.
Just evil motivation, and just go back into your hole.
The high school's principal says this was posted to 10 exterior doors to the school and that this appears to be a concentrated effort to foment racial and political tension.
In other triggering white news, we'd like to show you something that we hope everyone can appreciate. Very rare white tiger quadruplets made their debut at a Chinese zoo this week. Finally, we'd like to leave you with something odd that you might not have seen. Crop circles have long fascinated people from all walks of life, sometimes leading to questions of extraterrestrial visitors and conjuring up visions of flying saucers. These works of timely political art in Italy are most certainly man-made and speak to some of the greatest and gravest issues of our time. So, to stay informed like the news junkies here at JonBownePolitix, please check out the JonBownePolitix YouTube channel, where you will find a daily playlist of news from around the world. You can also find us at gab.ai and support us at patreon.com/JonBowne or paypal.me/JonBowne. You can also find breaking news publications at dailynewscollective.com. We hope you all have a wonderful week here at JonBownePolitix, and we hope that the next week won't be as screwed up as the past week. Thanks for joining us. If you've got a story that you consider news you can use, please let us know in the comments below or find us on gab.ai. My services are always available to you, as I am willing and able to report on any investigative story you may be willing to finance. We'll see you next week here at JonBownePolitix.